And Catherine, a Sustainable Harvest International board member who is amazing. She helps us a lot with development, communications. So she works a lot with Kate and I in that department. But on her own, she is just doing amazing things. She is a professor at UC San Francisco, and she is a certified soil biology technician. So that's why we were really excited for her to come to tell you all about that today, because that's really what drew her in as a board member and just as a person who's working on public health and climate solutions. So, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to screen share here. And let's see. All right. I assume that's all visible for you folks?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Oh, well, thank you so much, Tanya, and warm welcome to all of you who have come here today from so many different places. That's one real blessing of if there are can be some from the pandemic, is just learning how to connect remotely. It's a curse as well, I realize, but we can visit with all of you today. And I'm really appreciative of that opportunity. So thank you to Tanya and the staff at SHI for this invitation to provide an introductory, just some introductory comments about World Soil Day and Sustainable Harvest International, before we jump into the main content of today's webinar, which is to learn more about healthy soil from our terrific team in Belize. This first slide just shows you what it's all about. Healthy produce from farming families in Belize. I took this picture in 2018 on my first SHI trip, which was really just enlightening and amazing. Grown in healthy soil, and creating community and commercial opportunities for self-sufficiency, and SHI's vision of thriving. And I just get a kick out of the fact that you can see all the feet from the people who were oogling these delicious looking vegetables and fruit on the table after a long day of spending time in the fields. And really, this is what it's all about. My name is Catherine Gunling, as Tanya said, and I've been a board member at SHI for the past 5 years. She asked me to say just a couple of things about what brought me here. I came by a somewhat atypical route as a long-term health professional, looking for the roots, so to speak, I guess, of optimal human health. And having spent many days of my earlier years planting redwood seedlings and wandering in the forests, I had long since developed profound respect for the remarkable beauty of our natural world, as well as a strong desire to understand how it all related. So during the pandemic, like many of you, I added an additional learning path by gaining this certification as a soil biology laboratory technician through the Soil Food Web. I know many of you are familiar with it. And although this hasn't taken the place of my day job, the education has provided so much depth of understanding when speaking now with SHI's farmers and country teams about their farming activities. In fact, I think it's safe to say that I can be downright annoying with my questions. It's really given me new understanding and appreciation for the incredible life that exists in healthy soil and how it can help to solve many of today's problems if we just give the soil a chance. And it begins to answer the age-old questions of what's under my feet and what makes plants grow. So today, we're going to be exploring a little bit more about healthy soil with the assistance of our team from Belize. First, it makes complete sense that on this World Soil Day, we introduce this concept, and the United Nations established this day to focus attention on the importance of healthy soil and really to help us understand the importance and advocate for sustainable management of soil resources. Now, Indira will be talking much more about these concepts, but the brief overview is that healthy soil is just crucial for the growing of the largest possible quantities of nutrient-rich foods for stabilizing soil structure to maximize water storage and prevent runoff. We need to maintain biodiversity and habitats. We're really beginning to understand that everything is interrelated, all life on the planet. Soil serves as this incredible natural filter and really helps to purify water from all of the toxins that we humans have dumped into our soil over time. There are a few toxins, however, that are known as forever chemicals because even soil can't manage those yet. And also not mentioned too often, but more so lately, is that it can serve as a sink, healthy soil can, for excessive atmospheric carbon dioxide. Okay, let's see here. So, Sustainable Harvest International, it makes total sense that we're here today and sharing with you some of what we have learned over the past 26 years about soil and about how soil works and the life in the soil, farming, what techniques of farming work and what don't. And so on the left side, you can see the soil food web diagram, which is designed by Dr. Elaine Ingham of the Soil Food Web and is housed now at the United States Department of Agriculture. And you can see this interrelatedness of the sunshine interacting with plants above ground, roots underneath, organic matter, which is essential for the life of the critters, nematodes, fungi, bacteria, arthropods, and larger organisms, protozoa, which feed even macro arthropods, which then are totally necessary for birds and animals above the soil to thrive. And the picture on the right-hand side shows some of the organisms above the soil, which are, this is a picture of our amazing team from Honduras and two of our SHI staff members from a board trip there in February this past year. Sustainable Harvest International was founded by a graduating Peace Corps volunteer, many of you know, in Panama, Florence Reed, who recognized that environmental degradation and poverty are inextricably linked. And just about, you'll hear more about this soon when flow is a topic of a fireside chat upcoming, and Tanya will be telling you more about that. But the solution to environmental degradation and poverty are logically linked as well. This is just a sample picture of what has happened to some of the tropical forests in Central America. And my reaction, and yours probably also, is how on earth can anybody live there and work the land? The trees are gone. And as you know, there are many reasons for which this has happened, although I won't be going into that in further detail today. Our mission statement at Sustainable Harvest International: working together to create a just and sustainable world through transformative farmer training that nourishes communities and the earth. Our vision: people and the environment thriving in a healthy balance. It's pretty simple, but it's an awesome vision towards which I think we all really strive. SHI traditionally has worked in 5 phases over 5 years. It's like a master's degree for these partnering farming families with whom we work in Belize, Honduras, and Panama currently. And you can see also this diagram on the SHI website, and I apologize for the pixels here. But very briefly, it involves phase 1 of family selection, really community selection, orientation and planning, and other essential processes, introduction to sustainable farming and how to work the soil in a way that brings it alive and allows the growing of fruits, vegetables, and other trees that are essential for regenerative organic agriculture. Introduction to environmental stewardship, commercialization, as we move down here in the phases, small business development. And graduation is such an exciting day when all these families and community members come together to celebrate graduation. And they do get a certificate. On the right-hand side of this slide is key principles of sustainable harvest and these phases: sustainability, accountability, continual learning, innovation. Sorry, I'm having a difficult time reading my own slide too, and leadership. But we hope that by the time our farmers finish their training, these are the new skills and knowledge that they have developed. So with that, I just want to say welcome to what's coming up next, which is Indira from Belize, who will be talking to us more about the topic of today, which is healthy soil. And I'm going to stop screen sharing and turn it over back to Tanya. Thank you so much. And again, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Just a round of applause for Catherine. That was beautiful. Thank you for introducing our work, what brought you to us. I think it's an interesting perspective from a board member. That's why I didn't give the introduction, because I am paid to be here. Catherine is not. So it's a bit different. But it's just exciting to know someone else who's been here for a while as well and who knows more, because I just recently joined SHI. So thank you so much again, Catherine. And Indira for being here, the next person. So Indira Pat is our Programs and Partnerships Coordinator at SHI Belize. And she does so much more than I think her title can hold. I haven't been here. I've only been here since May, so it hasn't even been a year. But I see Indira just everywhere, working, interviewing with farmers for an initiative we just had, a fundraising initiative. So she really goes above and beyond just working with the farmers. She makes sure their stories get out there. They get out there in a way that they want it to get out there. Sometimes it can be tricky when just we're translating and there's different cultural contexts that you may not understand. So Indira does an amazing job at making sure that the work that is happening on the ground can be seen and really exemplified worldwide. And so Indira, I'm really glad you're presenting today. And I'll let you take the floor. And I'm going to share Indira's slides and she will guide me through them. So I'll start sharing as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Indira, as Tanya mentioned, and I'm very happy to be here, very excited to form part of this webinar. So, well, I'm an engineer agronomist working for SHI. And before I start with my presentation, let me just have a little introduction of who I am. Well, as I mentioned, I'm a graduated engineer agronomist, and I started working in SHI in 2019 as a field officer. And then I had the opportunity to become the Project Alliance Program Coordinator for Sustainable Harvest International Belize 1 year ago. So I'm very happy to be here and that opportunity for professional growth. So Sustainable Harvest International Belize was established in 1997 here, started working with families from the south of Belize, and then we moved in the north in 2016, where we have already partnered with over 150 families. We have impacted the lives of over 150 families. I must say that through the work that we've done, we've covered areas of impact from environment. We've improved the food sovereignty and nutrition of those families. Also make awareness on environmental issues or concerns. And we have managed to establish integrated systems and agroforestry systems, reforestation areas, preserving areas, so that people can learn and give that little back to the earth, right? So, and this topic of importance of soil health is very important. So let me start by saying, what is the soil, and we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, well, the soil is the foundation of productive, sustainable agriculture. A good soil contains 25% of air, 25% of water, 5% of organic matter, and 45% of minerals. Those are sand, silt, and clay. This is what we're talking as a healthy soil, a soil that human has not been into it, right? So increasing soil organic matter typically improves soil health, as this organic matter affects several critical soil functions. We will learn a little bit more about this throughout the slides. Healthy soils are also porous, which allows air and water to move freely through them. We will understand why we need this porousness in the soil, right? This balance ensures a suitable habitat for soil organisms that support growing plants. Next. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so the soil structure, let's understand a little bit more about the soil, right? So we have the soil structure, which we have labeled it as horizon O, which is the top part, which is the organic. Do we have a pointer? Yeah. Can we go to the first? Yeah, to the first part, the first layer, which will be the organic matter. This is where the concentration of the organic matter would be, which is in the top layer of the soil. Then we have horizon A, which is where is the decomposition happens. Once we remove all the first layer, we can see a spongy type of soil that is beneath, and there where
it's pretty basic so far.
Yeah, and
I'm not getting volume for some reason.
This is where most of the sorry, can you hear me good? Yeah, okay. This is where most of the microorganisms are, and they're doing the process of decomposition, right? The humus and the soluble compounds, this is where the root system would basically be. Then we have the horizon E and B, where the precipitation and the zone where there is low in humus because this is more of white soil. Then we have horizon C, which is the subsoil and the rocky material, and then horizon D, which is the mother rock. So basically, when we do a soil profile, this is what we can see. Next, please. So we got what a soil structure is. So what is soil fertility? Soil fertility is the ability to sustain the growth of plants and producing the nutrients that they need. We know that the plants need the macro and micronutrients so that they can produce fruits and vegetables. So what does it depend on? It depends on three major factors. It depends on the physical, chemical, and biological factors, which I will be explaining in the next slide. Yeah. So the physical fertility is mainly the rocks and minerals, the elements such as clay or silt. This will determine the composition and texture, different processes that happens in it due to climate, topography, or living organisms. This would basically be how the soil is structured. Then we have the biological fertility, which is very important, all the soil microorganisms. And these are responsible for transporting water, nutrients, and recycling. And then we have the third one, which is the chemical fertility. And this is involved mainly of pH, the water, and the nutrients, which I was talking earlier, the micro and macronutrients. Some of the most important ones would be the NPK, which is the nitrogen, which makes the plants to have vigorous leaves and plant growth. The phosphorus, which helps in the root development and the shoots. And then we have the potassium, which helps in the plant metabolism and resistance to pathogens. Okay, so in order for a soil to be called as a fertile soil, they need to have the physical, the biological, and the chemical fertility. Okay. But what causes the loss of fertility? There are many factors that cause the loss of fertility. One of them would be the monoculture. And it is practiced a lot here in Latin America and Central America. We see a lot of monoculture, which is extensive farming of one crop. Then we have the second one, which is the use of water, the excessive use of water, which many times they don't use the appropriate irrigation system for plants. The common slash and burn. What happens is that the material, the organic matter is burned along, and so are the microorganisms in the soil. The excessive animal grazing, which compacts the soil. The use of heavy machinery, which also affects the soil by removing the soil structure. And then we have the use of pesticides, excessive pesticides, and the flooding of water. So basically, these are the things that affect in this loss of soil fertility. Why? I said that in order for a soil to be considered fertile, they need to be physical, they need to be biological, and have to have chemical fertility, right? So doing all of this, what happens is that they affect how it is structured. And then we have something that is called land degradation, which means it is more than erosion. When we talk about land degradation, we're talking about something, a place where no plants can grow and nothing can be produced. And all of the previously mentioned factors are contributing to land degradation. So what can we do? We need to start doing soil conservation, and this should have been started from way back. So we need to use agricultural techniques and practices to avoid degradation, erosion, and depletion of the soil. The goal is to maintain the biodiversity that contributes to soil fertility. In this way, will increase the organic matter, break down organisms that release nutrients that the plant needs to produce, so we'll have more fruits, more vegetables, meaning we will have more food. The water infiltration and aeration, we know that all living organisms need water so that they can live. And then another goal would be better water supply, which will dissolve the nutrients for the plants, guarantee availability for future generations, which is very important. When we do soil conservation, what we're doing is that we're giving another opportunity for those younger generation to have healthy foods so that they can eat, and then improve the vegetative landscape that we see around. So just to mention that the pictures on my right are pictures of SHI Belize. So what are some of the techniques to improve the soil health? We have one, which is the conservational tillage and direct planting. Now, tillage can be seen in a way, can be done in a way that is not very harmful to the environment, meaning that the minimum tillage, just removing the topsoil and planting in it without having to go deep inside the structure of the soil. That way we won't disturb the microbial activity that is in the soil. Then we should do the crop rotation. Why is it important? So that we can leave the area to rest, the parcel to rest on the nutrients and also on the microbes that it has. 3, the abandonment of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, meaning that we should use more bioproducts that we can produce and are not harmful for the environment. Conservation of soil and organisms through the technique of mulching. The holistic pest control, meaning that we should use many different approaches to control the pests that we see on our gardens or on our environment, and not using those harmful pesticides that can intoxicate us. Then we have the strip cropping, which means having different crops in one area, using the most of the area and not doing the monoculture. The windbreakers. This is important because this type of crops will help and prevent pests from getting inside our main crop, and that way we will reduce the incidence of pests, and this is part of the holistic pest control. And then we have the use of cover crops. The use of cover crops is very important, since in this way, what we do is that we create a microclimate for the microbes in the soil, the beneficial microbes, and these can survive and help in the soil fertility. Also, these same cover crops, some of them can be used as green manure. So all of this is important. And I was talking about microbes and microorganisms in the soil. So let's talk a little bit of the effective microorganisms. The effective microorganisms are a mixture of naturally occurring beneficial organisms that can be applied as inoculants to increase the microbial diversity of the soil ecosystems. They are mainly composed of synthetic bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, yeast, actinomycetes, and fermenting fungi. Now, these organisms, what they do is that they help to maintain the energy and growth metabolism of the plant. They also help in the fermentation and the decomposition of larger materials that cannot be decomposed by itself. These microorganisms are physiologically compatible with each other and can coexist in liquid forms, meaning that we can have the microorganisms in a liquid and solid form. And then 3, the natural inoculant that improves the quality of the soil, the plant growth, and the performance. So on the left side, we have the microorganisms, that's the solid, and that white like spider web that we see there are the fermented microorganisms that we have there. And then on the right side, what we have is a plant showing how these microorganisms help. But in the next slide, I will be explaining a little bit more of it. Yeah, so here we have the plant, the interaction of the microorganisms and the plant. So we have the microorganisms, which are on the bottom, right, on the soil. And then we have the root system. Yes. And then all those colorful things that we see around are the microorganisms. And what they will do is that they will help to bring the nutrients. Those are the rocks on the edge. The white, the colorful ones would be the microorganisms. And what they will do is that they will bring all the nutrients that cannot move around. They will bring it closer to the root system so that the plant can absorb it and use it for the production of their fruits and vegetables. They will help the assimilation of the nutrients. Now, how this happens? The plant receives the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And once they receive that carbon dioxide, what will happen is that it will go down to the root system, and then there it will give that carbon dioxide to the microorganisms, and in return, the microorganisms will give the energy to the plant so that they can produce their own food. So all the nutrients that sometimes are applied through synthetic fertilizers, what they do is they go through a process of lixiviation, so the plant does not uses it. So the microorganisms will bring all of those materials, those nutrients, back to the root system of the plant. And that's how we maintain a very healthy plant, through the use of microorganisms. Now, the microorganisms are living organisms, just that we cannot see them with our bare eyes. So in order to maintain them alive, they need a microclimate. And that microclimate is produced or is done by the use of, I'll go back to your questions. And those and the microorganisms will receive all of those, will maintain alive by using the mulch and creating that microclimate. So basically, if we move to the next slide, we can say that the benefits of the microorganisms in the root systems is that it promotes water retention and nutrients absorption. It improves the root development. It limits the absorption of heavy metals, that the plant cannot access. Protects against the pathogenic fungi or nematodes. It makes it more stronger. It increases the amount of organic matter in the soil. It contributes to the solubilization of the phosphorus, and it's an anti-stress effect. So in a nutshell, the microorganisms help in the plant quality. We have better plant quality, better appearance, and good development. And the beneficial microorganisms have more benefit in the root system, as I mentioned before. It allows a balance between the pathogens and the beneficial microorganisms. It has better soil management, a better soil structure, the organic matter, the chemical characteristics, and stability. So that is important when it comes to the microorganisms and the relationship it has with the fertile soil and the microorganisms. So thank you. I see there are a lot of questions which I will be reading them. I was kind of reading them. That's why I got a little bit distracted on some of the slides.
That was really great. I guess before I get into questions first, thank you so much. That was a great breakdown. I know there was a lot of maybe science, biology that comes into play. And it's, of course, important for our teams to understand everything that's going on in the soil so they can restore it and do what we do best, which is help the environment and farmers. So yeah, we can get right into questions. If anyone needs to get up, get a drink of water, feel free while we kind of sort through the questions. I have not read the questions yet so far since I was sharing the presentation. So maybe we'll just go one by one and see how many we can get to. Indira, do you see any yet that you want to address?
Well, I see the first one, which says, what do you use for wind protection?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Currently here in Belize, what we are doing or what we're using is the sunflower and also the corn. The sunflower, we put it on the borders and the edges of the garden or the area that we're working on, and then that will serve as our windbreakers. It also depends on the type of crops that we will be producing. That would mainly be used for if we are doing cabbages or lettuce, if that's what we're producing. In other cases, when they have large parcels producing, we use the corn, as we plant four to 5 rows of corn all on the borders, and then we use that as a windbreaker.
And that's important, the wind protection, to protect the plants, to protect the vegetables and fruits.
Yes, that helps to protect the plants, and it reduces also in the flying insects. The flying insects would be like the moths that would usually affect in the production of the crops. So that's why we use windbreakers.
Thank you. Perfect. I see one. Is there a way to measure how much carbon dioxide is absorbed by plants? I don't know if you know the answer to that. I know that's a big question.
There are ways that can be made, but currently we're not taking that information. We're not collecting that information. But yes, there are some ways that can be used to know how much carbon dioxide it's absorbed by the plants.
Yeah, I think in general we kind of have like our little formulas here at Sustainable Harvest International to use those statistics just to know per farm this is what we're restoring. Like Indira said, maybe it's not an exact number, but just based on what people around the world are using as well, we have an idea that I mean, we have proven that we are helping the environment. So it is working even if we don't have the exact numbers all the time. I don't think I see any other questions. Am I missing one?
Yeah. Do you have programs that, yes, we have in Belize. We work mainly with primary schools because of the area, the geographic area where we're located. Where we are, we don't have universities near us or high schools. That's why we only work with children, which are like first grade, second grade students, about 13 to 14 years here in Belize. So we work along with them, the vegetable gardens.
Yeah, there's beautiful pictures of Belize working with Sustainable Harvest International Belize, working with schools on our Instagram and our social media. So feel free to follow us there to really keep up with what they're doing on the ground, because they have a lot of activities, and so it's exciting to see. Any other questions in the chat? I don't think I see any. Or does anyone? I see a hand. Go ahead, Dylan.
Hey, yeah, I just dropped a little thing in the chat, but I wanted to ask if there's a more nuanced thinking about slash and burn as a practice, because as I understand, many indigenous communities have used this technique for a long time while respecting the land and letting a field regrow after it's done being in use. I'm not an expert at all in this. I just wanted to ask if there's any more thoughts about this.
Thank you for that question. Indira, feel free to answer. And then I know Flo is nodding her head a lot, so maybe we can have someone else answer as well.
Okay. Yes, the slash and burn is really practiced here in mostly in Central American countries. A lot of those of people do it, farmers do it. However, talking about Belize, I can say in the area that we're located right now, there's not a lot of land to be slash and burn because most of them has been deforested. And that's what SHI is doing here in the north of Belize, is trying to reforest and preserve the little land that is still there. So just to account that we have done, we have regenerated about 5,000 acres of land throughout our 26 years here in Belize. We have regenerated that amount of land that has been slash and burn through agroforestry systems, through integrated systems, and through vegetable gardens, and also through reforestation. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, SHI not only works with food sovereignty, but also into making awareness on environmental conditions, issues that are currently happening. So we do a lot of capacity building trainings with those same farmers, so that they can understand why it is important to stop doing slash and burn, and what are all the alternatives that we work along with them. With the families, we use a farmer field school methodology so that we can have topics that are from the beginning, what is agriculture, up to the end of how we can maintain our produces, our land, and how we can preserve our environment.
And I could hop in and just add a little broader context on the slash and burn question based on my understanding of it. Slash and burn has been and can be a sustainable practice when it's, and I think traditionally it was, and sometimes still is, an indigenous community that will slash and burn a small area in a forest and grow some crops there, and then eventually leave that area to recuperate, and it's surrounded by forest and it has many decades to recuperate. When they move to a different area to renew that process, and so I imagine that's a very sustainable practice. However, I think what's happened over the centuries is that most of the forest has already been lost, and so farmers are forced into a very short rotation slash and burn. So they'll cut and they'll burn an area. It's no longer surrounded by forest. It's now surrounded by other slashed and burned areas. And the vast areas of best farmland are usually held by large, wealthy landowners. And so the poorer farmers, the ones that work with us in our program, are usually pushed up into mountainous areas, into foothills where they're farming on steep slopes, where of course the erosion is accelerated by that, as well as other factors. And so under the circumstances that the farmers in our program are experiencing, slash and burn is
a very unsustainable practice where the land gets very quickly degraded as the cycle is repeated in a short rotation, as compared to what it traditionally was in indigenous cultures. So I hope that that's helpful for a little context.
Yeah, thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for that question. And the word you use is perfect, nuanced understanding. So just having that depending on culture, context, the environment in the area, that's important. So thank you. I see two last questions. I think we'll just end with those, and then we'll move into our closing activity. This is going to be really fast, everyone. So Janine asked, do you work with worm composting in Belize, Indira?
SHI program does not work with the worm composting as yet, but yes, we're trying to get those worms from the University of Belize, which they are doing the worm composting, the earthworm. So we're trying to see if we can get a bit for our farmers so we can produce those worms and use the liquid and also the compost in our vegetable gardens.
Ooh, exciting. So we'll all update you when we get that in the works. And then I see one more question in the chat, and then we'll go to Jennifer. She has her hand up. So Lisa asked, can you speak a bit more about how soil health affects the nutritional value of crops? It just went away from me. And possible health effects to farmers/gardeners in contact with the healthy soil. I love that question.
Yes. Okay.
So basically, how does soil health affect food and nutrition?
It affects because, as I mentioned, there are three factors that we must consider to say that we have a fertile soil, right? We must consider the physical, the biological, and the chemical part. So once we don't have a healthy soil, we have a degraded soil, what will happen is that our soil won't be rich in nutrients, which are the basic nutrients, which are the NPK, and also the magnesium, the manganese, etc. Right? So once those nutrients are not present in the soil, the plant will have stress into producing the fruits and vegetables that they're supposed to. So the production will lower down. So what will that end up affecting is that the person that is, or the gardener or the farmer that is doing the production will have to buy more synthetic fertilizers so that those nutrients can be added in the soil and they can produce more. So we know that the synthetic fertilizer, they will lixiviate underground the soil and under the underground water, and that will contaminate. So it's a cycle that that is not healthy, and it's not sustainable practice. So that's why we need to keep our soils healthy. I don't know if with that I answered your question.
Yeah, basically, if you have degraded soil, well, one, as Indira mentioned, you can't even grow food if the soil health isn't there, you won't even grow anything. But yeah, if you do grow something, it doesn't have all the everything that you wanted from there.
Tanya, I might just add that there's actually very little research that's been conducted up until now about the actual measurements of the health effects, specifically of food grown in good, healthy soil that's biodiverse versus food that's grown in dirt or that has very little in the way of organisms because of use of fungicides, herbicides, pesticides. However, the academic medical community is really waking up the last 10 years to the importance of healthy soil and being able to grow good crops. And I'm really pleased to say that there is now some emerging data. There's a little bit showing that, yes, there are increased nutrients in food that is grown with soil that is full of nutrients, which is logical. But it's hard to measure. How do you measure, what areas of land and crops do you use? And can you use just any random farm in Belize and compare that to some other place? It's a hard thing to do, but there are really smart people who are trying to tackle this question. I'll just add to that one thing that I'm pretty convinced about, even though I don't yet have data, is that the soil microbiome really over the centuries has defined the human microbiome. And the human microbiome, as you know, is essential for human health. And when our biomes get screwed up, messed up, pardon my language, we have problems with our health, speaking as a health professional. So it's one of my major interests and goals is to stimulate research into better understanding the impact of these families. One big thing that I saw the first couple trips I was on was the really notable health of the kids who were part of SHI's families versus other kids in the area. Just being able to pick a wonderful fruit or vegetable and eat it right off your own property has got to be good for nutrition, for sustenance, and overall health. So I'll stop with that, but we're making progress in the research.
Thank you. And yes, of course, we need to hear that from you as you said, a medical professional. And that does remind me that we just sent a story on Demetrio, who graduated from SHI Panama. And his story is how he worked with pesticides. His health, his family's health was really just down the drain. It was not doing well. When he transformed into regenerative agriculture, we did see the very real health effects for all their family. So, I mean, sometimes, research may just be behind, but testimonies can show something different. And I'll pass it off to Jennifer, who is our Director of Programs and Partnerships. I hope I'm getting that right. She just got promoted.
Thank you, Tanya. Just a couple of comments over work, in Panama and Honduras and the use of worm composting. We have a couple of projects in Honduras that have strong experience on composting. And in case that anyone is interested, we can, just share more information about this project, which is called Promoter for Change. But also what I want to mention is we note a positive results and impacts on crop yields by using composting. And we also promote the use of organic and liquid fertilizers as part of our strategy. And we see that crop yields have an increase, 50% compared with the initial database that we have, especially with farmers that start our program 2 years ago. So I think that the experience is positive, and there are some, information that may be available for all of you if you are interested. And in relation to the question about techniques or tools that can help us to measure, carbon fixation or carbon sequestration at soil, I want to mention there is a tool available in the market for free, which is called Cool Farm Tool, that help us or help any farmers, to measure the carbon sequestration. The only thing is that we need really have a track record on the practices and also the use and the number of fertilizers, fertilizer applications that we are doing, at the farm level, and also the ratio and between the fertilizers and other ingredients that are applied to the soil, especially for crop protection. And if we have that, those data plus the energy use and other optionals data sets like the transportation, the distance, so everything comes at the moment that we want to measure your carbon sequestration. But used to share that until now, there are some tools available that we can use, that you can use, and easily to use if we and you have the data, at the farm level.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, everyone, for those wonderful questions. The last two, I see two more coming in, and I was going to just say, why don't we just send a response later over email? But since they're both kind of the same, maybe it's just best to just do it really quickly because I know we're running out of time. So two people asked Indira what, and I know you mentioned this in your presentation, so maybe just a very quick, brief reminder, how to improve soil fertility, how to repair soil. I think people are wondering because they want to start doing it themselves, which is great. They're inspired by your work. So maybe just give them like top 3 ways to start in their own backyard or wherever they are and how to repair soil.
Yes, I was answering through the chat. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the fertility of the soil can be improved through the adoption of regenerative agriculture techniques. One of them would be the the minimum tillage or the direct planting without interrupting the soil structure. 2 would be the use of efficient microorganisms, which will be the beneficial organisms in the soil. Another one would be the cover crops or the green manure. Then we have the composting that could be the worms or the food scrap that we have in our homes, or also even the residue of the plants that are not infested by pests or disease that can be used also to cover the area where we're working as mulching. Through also the use of crop rotation, which I mentioned. We need to understand that there are several crops, there are different crops that they would intake more nutrients than others. So we need to learn about that. And then we do the best crop rotation that we can. We do a planning to do that crop rotation. Crop diversification would be another one. And then we have others, as I mentioned, which would be the use of natural bioproducts, which are used of things that are not toxic or synthetic, and then the use of appropriate land by doing what Ms. Flo mentioned, leaving fallow land so that we can rotate the area where we're planting. And there are many other techniques that we can adopt, but those are just a few to mention.
That is it. That is our event. Thank you everyone for coming. This was just a lot of information. I loved your questions. Everyone was super engaged. And as Kate mentioned, this was our first webinar. So the fact that you all are on it, like, wow, just wow. You're all superstars. You're all going to be soil superstars very soon. If you do use any of these techniques in your own backyard, windowsill, whatever land or little place you have, please send pictures to us, to our email, tag us on social. We love to see it. We'll reshare it because this is a movement, right? It's not just us working in Central America. It's wherever you are, restoring the soil so we can restore our communities.